Hello over there and welcome again to lesson 18 of HTML forms, and in this particular lesson we are going to look on how to add HTML forms on our web page. And basically, what is a form? Forms are where you use to collect the user data or the user inputs. For example, let's say you want to collect some data when the users are registering, or maybe the users are applying for job, and when they're applying for that particular job you want to put some form there to be able to collect user details, such as their name, their email address, their CV, and any other information that you want to collect from the user. So to be able to collect any information from the user, you need to use the forms. And then how can we add forms? So an example of a form would be like this. Let me go to this website called Code Archive, and when you look on this website, when you click on sign up, you're going to see that there's this basic form here where you're able to enter your details, your first name, your email, password, and then you're going to sign up or to register. So to be able to put a form like this on HTML is what we want to look today in this particular lesson. And to add a form, we use the form tag. So the form tag of an HTML is used to add the form on the page. And within this form tag, there are other tags which we call the input tags. So within the form, we add the input tags, and this input tags specify the type of the input that we want to add. The inputs could be text box, or it could be a button, or a radio button, a checkbox, or whatever, a drop down list, or a text area, or whatever input that we want to add. And we specify the using the input tag and then the type attribute. And then we also add the labels. We're going to see that how the labels are added, and these labels help us to define the label for the input field. With that said, let's take a practical example in our Visual Studio and see how we can add a very simple form in our previous project that we created. So in our previous project we have created two pages, the home page and the about page. And now let's add another third page called the application page. And to add that, we want just to go and head over to our file here and click on create new file, and then we're going to call that file application page .html, and then we're going to press enter on our keyboard, and here we have our empty blank file. So in this page we're going to add the form within this page. So let us add a simple HTML code with a doc type and then the HTML tag, and then within I'm going to put the head, and within the head I'm going to add a simple title, and the title is application form. And below the head I'm going to add our body, and within the body now I'm going to add the form. So when I save this and I open this page with a live server, you can see we have a simple blank page with no any content, and on the page browser here, on the browser tab, we are able to see the application form as the title. So let's put a simple form here, and to add a form we're going to use the form tag. And then within the form tag we are going to specify the different types of inputs. So I'm going to put this tag called input, and within the input tag I'm going to specify the type of the input. So the type can be any of these type. You can see Visual Studio lists all the possible input types on the form, and then we can select the type that we want. So for me I'm going to put a simple text, and then after the type we are going to specify another attribute called the ID. So the ID I can call it first name or full name. Then I'm going to specify another attribute which is, so we have the type, the ID. The last one I'm going to specify is the name. So the name here, I'm going to say first name as well, I mean full name. The next, I'm going to specify the placeholder, and we're going to explain all this. So the placeholder, I'm going to say, for example, Samson Osman. All right. So now when I save these changes and I come on my page, you can see that I have one text field added here within the form. All right. So let's explain what this code means. So on top of this input field, I'm going to add a label for it so that the user can be able to see that label and know what type of data is expected to be entered here. So I'm going to say enter your full name. Then I'm going to add a break, line break, so that it displays the text field below this label. And then I'm going to specify that this label is for which field. So this label is for, in the for attribute, we specify the ID value. So the ID is full name. So we're going to say label for the full name. Then I'm going to save. Now if you come to your page, you can see now we have this text above the text field, and it is directing the user that to enter your full name, and now the user can be able to know what kind of information is required in this text field. So, and then the placeholder provides a sample data which the user can provide. So we are saying, for example, Samsung, but in real sense you need to enter your name, maybe John. All right. So let me add another text field, and this time round I'm going to say surname. So I'm coming again below this line, and again I'm going to add another label and say enter your surname, and below this label I'm going to add another input, and this input is going to be of type text again, and then also we're going to provide the ID, and let's call the ID surname, and then also we're going to provide the name, and we say surname. And now in the label for it, let's add the for attribute, and we say this label into your name, your surname, is for this ID. So the ID is surname. And now when I save, also add a line break. So now when I save, even before adding the line break, you can see how the input, the form appears. But if you want to bring this below, this text below here, then we can use the line breaks. So at the end of this, we can add a line break, and here also we add a line break. Now when we come to our form, you can see now this text appears below the other one. Alright, and even when you look at this space, the space is too close, and we can even add more break lines to increase the space between them. So I can add 2 break lines here, so that it appears more separated. Alright, now what I want to do is to make sure I bring my form at the center here. How do I bring that? So I go back to my code, and within the form tag I'm going to add a style, and within the style I'm going to specify text align attribute, and then I say align at the center. So now when I save, the form comes at the center. Alright, now let's continue adding more fields. So we have added 2 fields now, the full name and the surname. And now let's add email address. So again, to add an email address, we come down here, let's add a line break or even two, and then we come below and say input, let me undo. So the input field, we specify the type, and this time around we're going to specify the type as email. And then here we also specify the ID as email, and also specify the name as email. You can put a placeholder if you want, and then after that I'm going to add a line break, double line breaks after it. Then above it I'm also going to put a label for it so that the user can know that they should enter the email in this field. So I'm going to add a label and say enter your email, and then I'm going to add the for attribute and say the for attribute is for this email field. Now I'm going to save, and after saving we now have this enter your email. Now let's add a break line here so that we can bring this text below this label. So at the end of the label here we add a break, and when we save, now the text appears below the label. Alright, so let's look at another type of the input field, and that is checkbox. So we want to tell the user to be able to select the gender. So below here I'm going to say input, and the type should be radio. The type should be radio button, and then the ID you can say male, and then the name we provide also male. Then lastly we provide the other attribute called the value. Value, and the value, let's say male, and therefore we're going to provide the label for it above, right above it. So above it I'm going to put a label and say for male, and then here beside within it I say male. So when I save that, and let me also add, so when I save that, you can see now we have a male, and let me add the bring this label below it. Let me cut it from here, and I want to bring it below the radio button itself. So when I save, now we have this is a radio button that we've inserted, and beside it the person can be able to select and say I'm a male. So let's add the second option. We add another radio button. I'm going to copy this and paste it below, and then now I'm going to change the values. So the type is still radio. Now here ID, let me put female, and then name female also, and then the value female, and then the ID for female, and then the value that should be displayed as female. So when I save that, now we have two radio buttons, and someone can be able to select whether they're male or not, but then there is no label above it. So above it, let's put above these two radio buttons, let's put the label saying enter select your gender. Select gender. Then let's add a break. And now after saving it, you can see now there's an instruction which says select your gender, and now the person can be able to select this or select this one. All right, so we look at the next one, which is the checkbox. So how do we insert a checkbox? So below here I'm going to put input type, and then now I'm going to specify the type, and the type is going to be checkbox because I want to add a checkbox. And then I'm also going to add the ID for it, and let me say language, and then I add the name and say language. Then I'm going to add the value attribute and say English. All right, then below it I'm going to put the label for it. So and this label is going to be for, so in the for attribute within these brackets, within these quotation marks, I mean, we put the language, the value of the ID, language. Then now we can specify and say English. Then we can add another input value, the type is still checkbox, and then the ID is maybe language 1, and then the name language 1 or language 2. Let me use language 2, and then the value, now let's say Kiswahili, and here the ID for language 2, and then now we put the value Kiswahili. Now when I save and I come back to the browser, so you can see now we have a checkbox here, but now they are appearing on the same line. So let me use a break to break them into multiple lines. So after the radio buttons, I'm going to add a line break, and then after each of the checkbox, I'm going to add a line break. And now let's view again, and now you see it appears below here. But now let's even add a more line breaks so that we can separate them instead of appearing all together like this. So we can come back again here and even increase the number of line breaks, 2 line breaks. And then we can also, below this, we are going to add a label saying select your fluent language. All right, and I'm going to save, and after this should break and save. Now we have that, select your fluent language. Someone can be able to select English and even Kiswahili. All right, then let's say we want them to upload a file so that we can also maybe they want to upload CV, so I can go back again here, and below the languages let me add double line breaks. And for you to be able to upload a file on your page, you need to add the input type file. So the input type file, here I specify the type, and then here I should say file, then the ID, file, then the name, file. Right, then below it, above it, let me put the label for it, and between this label I'm going to tell the user to upload your CV. Okay, then I'm going to add a line break, and then I'm going to save. So when we come to our page, you can see upload your CV, and then let us even add more line breaks. And now someone can click on choose file, and when you click on choose file, you're able to navigate in your file explorer and be able to select the CV. Let's say this is my CV, and when I select that, I click open, that file is attached here, and now when I submit the form, the file should be sent to the backend. And then at the bottom here, I want to add the submit button, so that now the user can be able to submit the details after they have entered the values. So I'm going to add input type, and I'm going to say the type is submit. Then I'm going to add another one, and I'm saying input, and the type is reset. So when I save this and I come here, you can see now these two buttons have been added here, and now they're on the same line. So let me add a break, a line break up here. I add 2 line breaks so that it appears below this. And now after you enter your details here and you finish everything, then you can click on the submit button to send this data to the backend. So let me say I enter my name, Samson. I enter my surname, Osman. I enter my email address, Samson Yons. I select the gender male, and then I select English, and then I choose the file and upload this one. Now I can click on submit to submit, or if I click on reset, it is going to reset all these fields to empty values so that I can enter a new ones. Alright, so that's how you simply add a form on your web page. And in the next lesson, we will look and expound more on adding the other input fields. With this, thank you for joining this lesson, and see you in the next lesson, where we look at the more advanced concepts of HTML forms.